Hi everyone. Today I challenged myself to make something for a children's room as well as abstract art and to use the same method the entire way through. So I've got 4 little canvases and I'm using a coloured gesso or 2 coloured gessos, and I decided to combine them together as backgrounds without mixing them up. So the variegation gives a bit more depth and a bit more interest to the background, plus of course they will be covered up. So I'm just using an old paintbrush and covering the entire background. This serves 2 purposes. As it is a coloured gesso, it seals the canvas and it also gives a good base to work on. So those 4 canvases are my children's panels, and now I've got 2 black gessoed boards, and these will be my abstracts. So what I'm doing is continuing on with the background paint, and as I go along I'm going to go backwards and forwards between the children's and the abstract. So I'm using the same idea. So on this one I wanted to only put half the gesso so I can do some mark making on that area. So I've got a bamboo chopstick here that I'm using to do some mark making into the gesso part of this picture. As you can see, you can use either end of a bamboo chopstick or skewer, and there are all kinds of different mark making things that you can do. I wasn't sure what I was going to do in the future, so I was just playing and seeing what sort of marks came out on the spur of the moment, and this was just how one of the canvas boards came out. So this time on the second canvas board I decided to use up that paint so it wasn't sitting out for too long. All the time I'm aware that in the background my 4 little canvases are actually drying and will be ready soon for some collage elements. So I did the same background with mixture of the colours, wishy-washy. It doesn't have a particular purpose or design other than to just be background and, you know, a bit interesting. So I'm using a watercolour pencil, so I thought I'd test out what would happen when I use that. And so I'm quite liking the fact that a bit of the red pigment has come out onto all of the marks, and that's the start of my second panel. Just getting a little bit more of that red from the pencil out onto that canvas, and I'll be setting that aside to dry. Having a look at this one, decided to put more of that paint because basically I'm just using it up at this point and putting that on to the last third or quarter of the panel. And once that was all covered I set it aside to dry. Now the backgrounds of these little canvases are dry, so I have some old fussy cut images from very old children's books, and I thought that I would like to have a little play with putting those on and see what I could come up with. So I can't remember this book, but it was a very old book that my friend gave me, and it's just got these gorgeous little illustrations. So a rabbit, a chicken, and the top right there another chicken from the same book. Now there's this set of birds is from a totally different book, and the butterfly on the top right was actually from a Winnie the Pooh book. However, I know that I cover that later because I don't feel it matches. So now I'm using a napkin and taking off the 2 layers. This had 3 layers, so sometimes they're double thickness, sometimes they've got 3 layers. And I just wanted to use a little bit. I mainly was looking at the collage aspects of these little canvases, and I'm using Mod Podge full strength to get them all down. Same with the pictures, I used a bit of Mod Podge to glue and to overseal. So as you can see I've finished the 4 canvases, and now I am using the same idea, the same technique to go onto my abstract pieces. I've just ripped a piece. I haven't thought too hard about the shape and just decided where I would like to put it. And it adheres to the Mod Podge in the background, and then the Mod Podge over the top seals it down. Now sometimes there's a few little wrinkles. I haven't worried about that too much. I feel it's part of the character. This one, because of that great big, the side bit here with all of the blue, I just thought I'd put a larger piece on there. I already know that I'm going to use stenciling, mark making, maybe a bit of rolled over paint to fill in these canvases. So I'm not fussed about it being out of balance or too big at this stage. As I get to the end, I can fold over the edges and rip off. When napkins are wet, they rip very easily. So I went back to the first one because I was thinking I needed a little bit more and added another piece. Once they were all dry, I sanded them. I like the effect of the sanding. It kind of brings back a bit of the colour, takes out any rough edges, even creates a nice weathered look where there's wrinkles. I like the look of that. And even though this one was still, I think, a little bit damp and not sanding as easily and created that big hole, that didn't matter either. That's part of the process. So the next approach I wanted to do was to use some ink on my roller and go over the top. It's another form of weathering. It brings back a bit the brightness or the severe kind of look of it, and I did that on the 4 canvases, and then I did it on the other 2 as well. So the difference I noticed was that the canvases had a little buckle in, the edges were harder than the internal, whereas this is a hard board, so the effect came out quite differently. Could get a little bit more coverage on the boards than I could on the canvases. I tend to think that the canvases have more around each edge, and that's okay. I don't mind that. I don't mind the look at all. I just was having fun, and I got in a little bit of mark making on my canvases with that turquoise. And again on the second panel. So then I decided to get a little bit of the coloured gesso, the Whisper Green coloured gesso, out, and also add a little bit of that rolled onto the canvases. So as you can see, I'm going backwards and forwards between the canvas and the panel, and they're 2 entirely different pieces of work. So the same techniques, but in the end 2 very different pieces of work. As you can see, the roller can get it on in a big thick splodge, or it can get it on into very light marks. I've mixed up a little bit of the turquoise in with the Whisper Green there, so I'm getting just a patchy look. And then as each layer dries, I go in and do a sand. So with the next layer, I wanted to use a stencil, and I've used the little flower stencil with the animals and the children's ones. I quite like that I've used a white to do that. I think it makes them pop a little bit more. And I know you're probably saying, but we can't actually see the pictures, but I will rectify that later. I've gone over the top a little bit with the roller, and it's covered a bit of the detail of the pictures. However, I do fix that later. So here they are, the final 4, and ready to have the next layer done. What I did off camera was put just the little letters of the alphabet for the picture, so I'm just doing a second coat there. B for bird, R for rabbit, H for hen, C for chick. And here they are. So as part of the next layer of this piece, I obviously wasn't going to put any alphabet on this. I have got photocopy of a painting that I did of some wildflowers, and I'm just doing a little bit of collaging on my abstract pieces. This consists of putting some Mod Podge on the back of the photocopy, putting it in the place that I want it to go. I don't know if anyone remembers the painting. I have shared the pictures of that. This, I edited this, so I've boosted up the colour and changed it a bit. And then I have gone over the top to seal it. And at this point, I want to seal my entire boards. It never hurts to seal. You never know if your paint is going to stay, if it's going to smudge, if it gets wet, or you add another layer. So I did that to both of the abstract boards. Now what I'm doing here is coming back in with a fine liner and just really helping those pictures to pop again, bringing out the illustration and bringing it to the foreground. I felt that the birds in particular looked a bit muddy and couldn't tell what they were, and I also felt that the chick, or the hen, was a bit muddy. So now I have dried everything. I'm going in and mark making with a bit of bubble wrap. I'm realising that this is about the point where the difference between the children's canvases and the abstract, you can't have it exactly the same for all of them. So this is the point where the children's work became a bit more solid, the form and the structure of the animals. This is just the next stage of an abstract where it's mark making. So I was thinking about those little canvases and thinking about if they're for children, and I decided that what I needed to do was to write the words. So I am putting some paint over this map. It's an acrylic and just rolling it on. I've taken the glass mat out basically because it was, there was no give to it, and my mat under there is actually quite spongy and rubbery, so there was a bit more give for the roller. And now I'm just ripping up a few bits of the map, so you can only just see the map through. It's been pared back by that rolled paint, and I've got a couple of words to put on, cutting those out. And my idea was to just put a little word, so the word bird on a little bit of map. Just cutting it down to make it smaller. They're not very big canvases. You can tell by my hands they're not a huge size. They're just something cute that a kid might have up on their wall in front of their little desk or something like that. And after I've put the word on the bit of map, I'm going to rip that down and put it on. It's okay to use a bit of glue stick because I know I always seal afterwards, so it should be perfectly okay. One thing I notice here, my natural inclination is to put the word sideways, but I quickly realise that if it's for a child, they need to see the word as it's read or as it's written, so that because it's a learning tool. So I've ended up putting all the words so they're readable. The next step, I decided to go around each of the letters to just help them to pop a little bit. And coming to the end of the finished pieces, I do believe. And sealing finally with a layer of Mod Podge. Everything's well and truly dry, so this isn't a problem. I noticed on one of them that the black outline of the letters hadn't quite dried, so I got a very tiny bit of smudging. It is actually a waterproof pen, but I think that the main point of that is that it needs to have dried before you try to put your Mod Podge on. And so that's my 4 little pieces, and then I just want to finish off my abstract, and I decided that because my aim was to use similar techniques all the way through for an abstract and children's pieces, that I'd put a little bit of that map in there. So once more, adding in a little bit of map with Mod Podge. I will still have to probably sand that edge down, what doesn't stick, and the same on this one. I'm still thinking that even though the children's ones are finished, I'm not quite sure that these are finished. I'm feeling like I'm going to finish the video with them as I did them here, and I probably will put them somewhere where I can see them and just think about them for a while. So with this bit of map, I had put it long ways down the board, but it is an up, it's a board that is long, so that's the way it sits. And I felt that was too many long, thin bits of paper, so I've made it run the other way. And I decided that because it's quite two-dimensional, really, this whole piece, which is not my idea of abstract. So I've decided to add in a little bit of fabric to give it a little bit more of a 3D element, a bit more texture, and just using a little bit of fabric fix to get one of the edges of a doily that's been indigo dyed. Now, as I'm looking at it now, and I know that I finished, just added another little bit of map there. I'm thinking probably I might like to bring in some texture paste to just give it a bit more dimension. But like I said, I will probably put them up on the wall, have a look at them for a while, and then see what I think in a week or two. So final seal, and here are the end shots. This is the children's, similar techniques to the other one. Just some cute little canvases for a child's wall, and you can see all the animals now. And here's the abstracts, all dry, finished. Well, maybe not finished, maybe waiting for the next thought that comes along. So I hope you've enjoyed that little playthrough, and go and play, have fun yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.